that you didn't need, but you wanted me. Maybe I was wrong, even want wasn't anything. So if we had another chance, I would never let you steal my lips. Bring me back to life.
Welcome to the Fray Flak Pack. It's Termex here, and welcome back to another Borderlands 3 build video. And in today's build video, I thought with the new recently buffed weapons with the new hotfix that I should make a build out of the gun that got probably the most love out of all of them, and that is the Terminal Crits. Now, if you do not know, this is a Moxxi weapon obtained from, well, of course, Moxxi when you tip her on Sanctuary, and once you tip her enough, she will send you one of these in your mail. It will either be this or the hail, depending on your RNG, but eventually you will get a crit. Now, the crit can roll with any anointments, except the new anointments. I don't think it gets 300 over 90 and that kind of stuff, not that you need it. But it does roll in a normal single pellet variant, but you do have a binary version, which gives it the ×2 prefix. And honestly, it's probably one of the easiest guns in the game to obtain, because you basically just have to go up to Moxxi, spend a few $1,000s. I guarantee you most of you already have millions of dollars, so you're going to get the one that you want, probably within $500,000 of your money. And the one I specifically farmed for was a binary URAD one, so I got the URAD anointments along with the ×2 prefix. But alongside this, I decided to put the hail in here. Yes, it is a blue assault rifle, but it does quite a bit of damage with the recent buff. I also got this with URAD. I did get it in corrosive to deal with more armored targets. You could get this in any element, but the terminal crits is only locked to shock, which is unfortunate, but at the end of the day, shock damage is going to be very useful for many things, and since we have URAD attached to it, it's basically like the plasma coil without having to switch elements, because you're doing shock and radiation at the same time. But I'll show you guys the skill tree for this build right now on screen, so you guys on console could put this into your characters. I know you guys don't have the privilege of having the PC save file, so I want you guys to be able to just look at this screen, copy the skill tree, and have the whole build ready. Now, a lot of people are going to ask me why I didn't put any points into Two Fang. Yes, Two Fang does help out this weapon. 25% of the time we'll shoot 3 projectiles instead of 2, but honestly, it's not that big of a deal to warrant an extra 5 points into this. In terms of Purple Tree, the only useful thing we went into in here is agility trading, just so we can get that 40% reload speed. A lot better of an investment than if you were to go into Second Intention, in my opinion. And Blue Tree went far enough to get 3 out of 5 into Barbaric Yops. With this, our Great Horn Skag gives us 11% extra damage in general and 22% extra gun damage. So we're really trying to get the max damage out of this weapon. Even though it already got buffed a crap ton, we just want even more damage. Now for the abilities themselves, I am running rack attacks. We can get our ASEs a lot more often, along with flock and load, so we get 2 additional racks, and rack accelerate, so we can get an extra charge and 20% faster cooldown rates. As for my Guardian rank, none of my builds feature Guardian rank perks or their stats. That's just not how I play Borderlands, so I'm not relying on any interactions or buffs for this build to be good. This is just pure raw damage. If you want to turn on Guardian rank, go ahead. You're going to be doing a crap ton more damage than what you've seen here today, but I'm just letting you guys know this is how I test all my builds to make sure that they are good or not. And of course, we are on Mayhem 11. Now, getting into the inventory, this build is going to be pretty basic for a lot of you, and I know a lot of you are going to be happy to hear this, but this build does not require any DLC to work. The crit is not a DLC weapon, the bounty hunter is not DLC, a deathless isn't DLC, and neither is the stopgap. With all of this being said, you can just download the game, you might be new, got the normal edition, and you could run this build to do all the content in the game, which I think is pretty cool. It's a nice little side bonus, so, you know, it works out. Before I go further into the gear itself, the main thing about this build with the crit is the reason why I did this on Flak, and I know it's probably better on Moe's, it probably gets more elemental damage on Amara, but this SMG for a Maliwan gets 150% bonus critical hit damage. Now this paired with Flak's crit skills is just going to be insane, and it's probably one of the best SMGs Flak has in his kit right now. And this also goes for the hail. The hail also gets 150% critical hit damage bonus, even though it is a dull weapon. Now, I threw in the Plague Bearer as your fire damage dealer because we are mainly using shock, corrosive, and radiation. So I want to throw this in so when it comes to takedowns or maybe a bunch of fleshy enemies, that you guys can still deal good fire damage. This is just in there to help you guys. And on top of that, it does have 200% splash ASE. And since we're using rack attack, it's going to be perfect with this gun. So right when we use our rack attack, you get that 200% more damage and you're good to go. Now, as for the class mod, I do have a bounty hunter so we can trigger our hunter kill skills. And I just like this class mod when it comes to builds like this because it allows us to get our bonuses before we even kill enemies, allowing us to do the maximum amount of damage that we can. My rolls were SMG damage and weapon damage. That's going to be benefiting our crits and all of our other weapons, and action skill cooldown rate just so we get our rag attack a little bit quicker. Now, as for the relic, I went with an Atom Bomb Deathless. This is what I featured in my Pet Flaction version 3 build. That's on my channel as well if you guys want to check that out. I made a lot of adjustments to that build, so if you like to rock Flak more with his pet, that build's probably for you. Now, area of effect damage is a very useless roll on this relic because the crit, despite it looking like a splash weapon, it does not get any splash benefits. I just didn't have a better death list, and this is kind of a hard relic to farm, so the radiation damage and the magazine size will do. But since we're using URAD, we're going to be proccing radiation on every enemy, which means that the aura damage, the burst radius, all that kind of stuff will be benefited, giving us more damage. Now, as for your grenade, it doesn't really matter what you get. You can have a Hunter Seeker, a Lightspeed, anything with an ASE that won't stack it just for more damage. I like to run the Corrosive Lightspeed when I am doing takedowns, but for bosses, I like using a Hunter Seeker with either fire or radiation. Fire is usually my favorite because Grave Ward and that kind of stuff, and it procs your Hunter kill skills since we have Megavore and the Bounty Hunter class mod. Now, as for your shield, we do have an Ass Gap or the Stop Gap with a action skill Start Annoyance. So every time we use Rack Attack, we are immune to damage for 5 seconds. And for the people that don't know how this works, you use your Rack Attack. You see this little blue hexagon thing around your screen. Once that runs out, you pop it again, and as long as that thing is around your screen, you're invincible. You can't take damage. So time your Rack Attacks correctly, so every single time that you have this on cooldown, you can pop your Rag Attack and proc it back up. Just don't spam it too fast because it will not constantly go. You have to wait for it to go away for a second and then use your Rag Attack again, and then you could finally have more seconds of immunity. But that's really it, guys. Like I said before, DLC is not required. A lot of people are going to ask why not run a Pearl along with maybe something like a front loader. Now, my big gripe with the front loader is you're not going to be having any survivability whatsoever. You're going to be doing a little bit more damage than you would with this setup, but when you're doing takedowns, you're going to be doing a lot of push-ups up and down, because you're just going to keep dying, and I don't really like that, so I decided to put more survivability into this build with the stopgap, and that's just basically what I like to run. But if you don't want that, I do have a front loader and a Pearl in the save file. Link is in the description below for you guys to download if you're on PC, if you guys want to try that version out. But let's hop right into Eden 6. I haven't really build tested here in a long time, and we're not running any specific fire damage, so I don't expect us to do the maximum amount of damage on these targets, but I just want to show you, regardless of what the enemies are, you're going to be doing a lot of damage, and I'm kind of tired of running the same old Athenas every time I showcase a build. Pop our rack attack, and we're going to go in, and we're using shock here, and we're melting flesh targets like it's nothing. And yeah, this gun did get a pretty big buff, and it definitely shows. But a lot of this damage is coming from our binary prefix. We are using twice the amount of ammo, but we're doing twice the amount of damage. So honestly, to me, it's a fair trade-off. And you can see our Atom Bomb is working beautifully, chaining those radiation explosions with enemies. Another thing that I love about this build. But I will warn you guys, the crits gimmick, you may wonder, oh, well, it's such a good gun. It has to have some sort of downfall. Well, trust me, it does. This gun on reload has a 5% chance to just fall out of your hands. You just drop it, because the red text does say slippery when wet. Now, this is a same reference to the Borderlands 2 crit, which did the same exact thing, but difference is, in Borderlands 2, they had a lot of meshing issues to where when you dropped items on the ground, it would mesh, well, through the ground and it would be gone forever. But in Borderlands 3, that doesn't seem to be as much of an issue anymore. But I will say that you can still drop it off the edge. Like, when you're fighting Grave Ward, you could definitely drop it off the edge. When you're fighting the Valkyries, you could definitely drop it off the edge there. I know Moxxi had a a little mess up with that.
Does anyone know what the chance of it to fall out of my hand is? Oh.
And another thing that happened to me earlier, sometimes like right when you go into fight for your life, you can still drop it in fight for your life, and you won't have any gun to shoot. Now to combat this, that is why I threw the hail into this build, because if you're in a takedown and this is your only gun you have equipped and you can't get a res, you're gonna have to fight back for that gun on the ground, because you can't get it from your lost loot, because this game drops you so many legendaries it's never gonna pop up. So you're gonna have some backup plan if this thing slips up at the wrong time. But I mean, there's not much more I could say. This gun is amazing now. I don't know if it's gonna get nerfed, but in my opinion it excels over the plasma coil for 2 reasons. One, the fire rate, there's no burst delay in the fire rate. Oh well, there's one of the drops right there. And another thing I'll say, when you do drop it, sometimes the URAD anoint just stops working. And I don't think it's happening right now. Oh yeah, it is happening right now. You see I'm only doing corrosive and shock on that enemy. All you have to do is switch to a weapon, switch to this, and you will be doing the URAD damage once again. It happens sometimes when you drop the gun. I just want you guys to be aware that that is a bug, and that is simply how you fix it. But back onto what I was saying, I think it's better than the plasma coil, not only because it has self-healing. I know we're not taking advantage of the self-healing, but Flak doesn't really need self-healing. I mean, he could use it, but I'd rather do more damage to the point to where we don't even need healing because they're already dead. But this does, to me, it's just so much better than the plasma coil. The critical hit damage bonus is beneficial for Flak in general. It's beneficial just for rewarding you for actually hitting crits. And I'm pretty sure it's the only Maliwan weapon in the game that gives you bonus critical hit damage. I might not be correct on that, but I'm pretty dang sure. And it's one of the easiest guns to get in the game. I mean, the plasma coil, you just have to go through the hardest content for an hour. But for this, nah. Let's just tip Moxxi a few $1,000s, and you'll get the best SMG in the game. But yeah, guys, I hope you enjoyed this build. And as always, if you want to, join my Flak Pack Discord. It's where you can contact me and ask me basically anything. And it's basically the hub of the Flak Pack. And if you guys want to download the save file and you're on PC, hit the link in the description below. You guys can download that and get everything that you've seen here in today's video. I hope you guys have a terrific day. Stay safe, and I will see you guys later.